Did you ever want to know how the Catholic Church declares someone a saint? You probably know that periodically the Catholic Church recognizes new holy men and women as its official saints. But what exactly are the steps to canonization, that is, being named a saint by the Catholic Church? The process has actually changed throughout history. In the first centuries, it was by acclamation of the community that sainthood was pronounced, sort of a spiritual popularity contest. But because the stories of some of the early saints' lives were later found to be exaggerated or even purely legend, this method eventually gave way to a more structured process. So, in the Middle Ages, a new path to sainthood was prescribed, a set of rules we pretty much still use today. Here's what happens. First of all, and probably most obvious, a person has to have died in order to be considered an official saint in the Church, because we believe the saints are in heaven with God. So at some point after their death, some fan of the potential saint, like someone who knew them or a member of their religious community, asks their local bishop to begin the cause for canonization. Once the bishop agrees, the potential saint receives the title Servant of God, and a formal review is undertaken at the local level, guided by historians and theologians. Then the bishop may decide to send the cause to Rome. The Congregation for the Causes of Saints, an entire department at the Vatican devoted to this sainthood process, then determines if the person in question demonstrated heroic sanctity in their lifetime worthy of imitation. That is, did they live a life marked by virtuous actions, doing good works out of love of God and neighbor? If so, with the Pope's decree, they are declared venerable. Next, the search begins for proof that a miracle occurred through the person's intercession since they have died. Note that this is not a miracle that happened while they were alive, like cases where saints have reportedly levitated or experienced the wounds of Christ. In the eyes of the Church, a miracle attributed to someone after their death is evidence that the person is indeed in heaven with God, interceding for us here on earth. Catholic belief is that it is actually God that performs the miracle. The potential saint is essentially being credited with an assist, like in hockey or basketball. The process of confirming that a miracle truly happened is exhaustive. Miracles for sainthood are not limited to medical cures, but in practice they almost always are. And a miraculous cure must meet 3 stringent criteria. It must be instantaneous, lasting, and unexplainable. Instantaneous, meaning that a person goes from very sick or terminally ill to healthy in a very short period of time, usually days. Lasting, meaning it was not a fluke or a brief remission, the cure needs to last for at least a year or more. And unexplainable, meaning that the person's return to health may not be even possibly attributed to any other course of treatment. To verify these criteria, doctors and scientific experts scrutinize medical records and weigh in on the credibility of these claims. Even non-religious skeptics are invited to try to disprove the miracle. On top of all that, there must be evidence that people prayed for the intercession of the would-be saint before the miraculous cure happened, and that they did not enlist the help of any other saint. It's okay to pray to God or Jesus directly, of course, but you can hedge your bets by also including ringers like St. Jude or even the Virgin Mary. So once there is proof that a miracle resulted from the aspiring saint's intercession, the person may now be officially called blessed. The ceremony during which this happens is called beatification and is most often held in the local diocese that has promoted this person's sainthood cause. At this point, a feast day is chosen to be celebrated in certain places having to do with this blessed person, and churches and schools may be named after them. And now the search begins for a second miracle that can be shown to have happened after the beatification, using the same stringent process just described. Once miracle number 2 is verified and approved by Rome, the person may then be officially canonized, which means that the Pope declares them a saint. This ceremony almost always happens at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome and is presided over by the Pope himself. Once canonized, a saint is recognized by the Universal Church, and their feast day may be celebrated all around the world. Now that's the official process. Of course, there are always exceptions. For instance, a martyr, someone who has died voluntarily as a witness to the faith, requires only 1 miracle for canonization, not 2. The Pope can also decide to dispense with the second miracle even for a non-martyr, as Pope Francis did with Pope John XXIII. And then there's equivalent canonization, in which someone who is unofficially considered a saint in certain cultures or countries can be officially declared one through papal decree rather than through the full canonization process. It's important to note that the Catholic Church does not believe that through any of these processes a holy person becomes a saint. We're merely recognizing their sainthood. It's our earthly way of officially affirming that they are indeed in heaven with God, hearing and assisting with our prayers. And now you know how the Catholic Church officially goes about declaring someone a saint.
Well, over the past several days, of course, everything under the sun has been said about these two new saints. They're, of course, both world historical figures, hugely important for the church, and everything's been said about them. How would I sum them up? I've been thinking about it a lot these last several days. I think I'd use this phrase. They're both radically converted Christian disciples. Both John the 23rd and John Paul II go underneath all of their great, heroic external accomplishments. They were both radically converted followers of Jesus Christ. They had given their lives utterly to Him. Now see, the difference that makes is you don't live in fear. See, we're all sinners to varying degrees, and sinners will orient their lives according to their fears. I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of not being a success, I'm afraid of getting sick, I'm afraid of not being loved, I'm afraid of dying. And see, when you live your life out of fear, and then you turn in. But see, when you've turned your life over to Jesus Christ, who is the incarnation of God's eternal, infinite love, then you live in a sort of freedom. And you live in this joy that goes beyond the joy that the world can give. There's a great quote, we put it up on the blog site a few days ago from John the 23rd, is don't live your life according to your fears, but live your life, order your life according to your dreams. And he means dreams here in the deep spiritual sense. It's a joy and a freedom that comes. See, that's exactly why he was able to call the Second Vatican Council. Lots of people said to him at the time, this is crazy, you can't possibly do it. It's a bad idea, we couldn't organize it in time, don't do it. But John the 23rd lived as a radically converted Christian disciple. His life belonged to Jesus Christ, and so he had hope, he had confidence he could do it. John Paul II, of course, the same thing obtains. As a young man, he becomes a radically converted follower of Jesus Christ. And he grew up, as we know, under the worst possible conditions, under horrific political oppression, first by the Nazis and by the communists, under constant surveillance in his young years as a priest and a bishop. He had every reason to be afraid, every reason to order his life according to fear. But he had given his life to Jesus Christ. And it gave him this blithe confidence to function as a priest, to draw young people to him, to go on those famous kayaking trips and form a generation of students, and eventually, as Pope, to go out to the whole world, including to his native Poland, and to speak the great truth of the gospel, even there in the midst of oppression. I think that's the great lesson, perhaps, from both these saints. And see, it's what's true of all the saints. Radically converted Christian disciples now live their lives not according to their fears, but according to the love of Christ. And that is a source of liberation. That's a source of joy and a source of mission. So everybody listen to me. That's the lesson of these two great saints. Turn your life right now over to Christ, and you'll find this new freedom. Again, thanks for following these videos. Pray for us as we head home, and God bless you.